The Lord of the Isles is a title of Scottish nobility with historical roots that go back beyond the Kingdom of Scotland. It emerged from a series of hybrid Viking, Gaelic rulers of the west coast and islands of Scotland in the Middle Ages, who wielded sea power with fleets of galleys. Although they were, at times, nominal vassals of the kings of Norway, Ireland, or Scotland, the island chiefs remained functionally independent for many centuries. Their territory included the Hebrides, Neuath, Ardnamurchan, and the Kintyre Peninsula. At their height they were the greatest landowners and most powerful lords in the British Isles after the kings of England and Scotland. The end of the MacDonald Laws came in 1493 when John MacDonald forfeited his estates and titles to King James IV of Scotland. Since that time, the title has been held by the Duke of Rothesay, the eldest son and heir apparent of the King of Scotland, which, since the creation of the Kingdom of Great Britain, is now borne by the Prince of Wales. Thus Prince Charles is the current Lord of the Isles. The only island still in the possession of the MacDonalds is tiny Cara off Kintyre, which is owned by the MacDonalds of Luggie, a small remnant of the once vast family inheritance. Armorials. The arms adopted by the Lord of the Isles varied over time, but the blazon given and illustrated in the armorial of Sir David Lindsay of the Mount is, or, an eagle displayed gules-beaked and armed sable over all a limpad sable. Background. The west coast and islands of present-day Scotland were those of a people or peoples of uncertain cultural affiliation until the 5th century. They were invaded by Gaels from Ireland starting perhaps in the 4th century or earlier, whose language eventually predominated. In the 7th and 8th centuries this area, like others, suffered raids and invasions by Vikings from Norway, and the islands became known to the Gaels as Innse Gall, the islands of the foreigners. Around 875, Norwegian jarls, or princes, came to these islands to avoid losing their independence in the course of King Harald Fairhair's unification of Norway. But Harald pursued them and conquered the Hebrides as well as Man, and the Shetland and Orkney Islands. The following year, the people of the Isles, both Gael and Norse, rebelled. Harold sent his cousin Ketil Flatnose to regain control. Ketil then became king of the Isles. Scotland and Norway would continue to dispute over lordship of the area, with the Jarls of Orkney at times seeing themselves as independent rulers. In 973, Micus mac Araelt, king of the Isles, Kenneth III, king of the Scots, and Mael Coluim I of Strathclyde formed a defensive alliance. But subsequently the Scandinavians defeated Gillidaman of the Isles and expelled him to Ireland. The Norse nobleman Godred Crovan became ruler of Man and the Isles, but he was deposed in 1095 by the new king of Norway, Magnus Beleg. In 1098, Magnus entered into a treaty with King Eadgar of Scotland, intended as a demarcation of their respective areas of authority. Magnus was confirmed in control of the Isles and Edgar of the mainland. Lavery cites a tale from the Orkneyinga saga, according to which King Malcolm III of Scotland offered Earl Magnus of Orkney all the islands off the west coast navigable with the rudder set. Magnus then allegedly had a skiff hauled across the neck of land at Tarbert, Loch Fyne with himself at the helm, thus including the Kintyre Peninsula in the Isles' sphere of influence. Founding of the dynasties. Somerled, Gildoman's grandson, seized the Isles from the King of Man in 1156 and founded a dynasty that in time became the Lords of the Isles. He had Celtic blood on his father's side and Norse on his mother's. His contemporaries knew him as Somerled MacGilbred, Sonhair Law in Norse Sumarli de Hold. He took the title Rìgh Innse Gall as well as King of Man. After Somerled's death in 1164, 3 of his sons divided his kingdom between him, Eoghus, Duffall, Ragnald, whose son Donald More MacReynald would give his name to the clan Donald, which would contest territory with the MacDougals. King Haakon IV of Norway confirmed Donald's son Angus More MacDonald as Lord of Eilean, and the two participated jointly in the Battle of Largs. When that ended with an effective victory for Scotland, Angus More accepted King Alexander III of Scotland as his overlord and retained his own territory. Council of the Isles. The Lord was advised by a council. Dean Monroe of the Isles, who wrote a description of the Western Isles in 1549, described the membership as consisting of 4 ranks. 4 great men of the royal blood of Clan Donald lineally descended. 4 greatest of the nobles, called lords. 4 thanes of less living in estate, freeholders or men that had their lands in factory. In practice, membership and attendance must have varied with the times and the occasion. A commission granted in July 1545 by Domnall Dove, claimant to the lordship, identified the following members: Hector MacLean of Jewett, John MacDonald of Clan Ranald, Ruairí MacLeod of the Lewis, Alexander MacLeod of Dunvegan, Murdoch MacLean of Lochbuie, Alan MacLean of Torluisk, Archibald MacDonald, captain of Clan Uisdene, Alexander Machan of Arden a Mercon, John MacLean of Coll, Gilionan MacNeil of Barra, Ewan MacKinnon of Strath, John Macquarie of Ulva, John MacLean of Ardgour, Alexander MacDonald of Glengarry, Angus MacDonald of Knoydart, Donald MacLean of Kingairloch, Angus MacDonald, brother of James MacDonald of Duniveg, Lords of the Isles. Angus Og, Angus More's younger son, gave assistance to Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, and in reward kept control of the Isles and gained most of the land confiscated from the MacDougals for backing the defeated side. Angus Og's son Good John of Islay first formally assumed the title Dominus Insularum, Lord of the Isles, in 1336. In their maritime domain the Lords of the Isles used galleys for both warfare and transport. These ships had developed from the Viking longships and knars, clinker-built with a square sail and rows of oars. From the 14th century they changed from using a steering oar to a stern rudder. These ships took part in sea battles and attacked castles or forts built close to the sea. The lordship specified the feudal dues of its subjects in terms of numbers and sizes of the galleys each area had to provide in service to their lord. Successive lords of the Isles fiercely asserted their independence, culminating in 1462 with John MacDonald II of the Isles making a treaty with Edward IV of England to conquer Scotland with him and the Earl of Douglas. The Civil War in England, known famously as the Wars of the Roses, prevented the activation of this alliance, and on the discovery of his treason in 1493, John MacDonald II forfeited his estates and titles to James IV of Scotland. Since then, the eldest male child of the reigning Scottish monarch has been styled Lord of the Isles. The office itself has been extinct since the 15th century, and the style since then has no other meaning but to recall the Scottish destruction of the ancient Norse Gaelic lordship. Currently Prince Charles is Lord of the Isles, as well as Duke of Rothesay, Earl of Carrick, Baron of Renfrew, and High Steward of Scotland. Tiny Cara off Kintyre, which is owned by the MacDonalds of Logie, is reputedly the only island still in the possession of direct descendants of the Lords of the Isles.